All right, communication. Communication in the college recruiting process. That's the number one question I get asked about is the communication with the college coach, right? So it's a challenge. It's absolutely a challenge for many recruits communicating with a college coach. After all, the recruit, once they pick their school, they're pretty much, what is it they want from the coach? They want a roster spot, an endorsement of the application, or a scholarship, or all three, or two out of the three. So in regards to communication, what should a recruit think if the coach isn't returning the recruit's text, it's not returning the recruit's emails, or not returning the phone calls that are left for the coach? So, what should what should the recruit think if they're not returning text, emails, and phone calls? The obvious thing is they're not interested. That isn't always the case. It's not always the case. Some coaches are just not necessarily really good at staying up with correspondence work, and there's a lot of correspondence work that is sent the coach's way. A lot of emails and stuff like that. So that's just one of those things. The coach has got to do a better job of that, stay out in front of it. But anyway, we know that's a fact. So if the coach isn't returning the recruit's text or email or phone calls, does not necessarily mean they're not interested. Maybe they don't have enough information. Maybe they don't get to it. So we'll talk more about how to text and how to email and phone calling and so forth. The other thing that pops up is in tennis recruiting. In that particular website, it's very well organized. They got the recruits by class, and then they just have it pretty well organized. However, if a coach is clicking on your profile in tennis recruiting, that doesn't necessarily mean they are interested. I worked with a player who a school clicked on their profile over 50 times, and they weren't necessarily interested. And what happens is that's just technology connecting supply and demand. That's not real interest, because the coaches, if they've listed the player there one time, they may have the website sends out emails every time a new result is posted, a notification. So they get notified, and then if they click the email, that shows that they visit your profile, but they just may be clicking the email. So for sure, without a doubt, if a recruit profile is being visited by a school, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are interested. If a recruit is not getting a response from a coach via text, email, or voicemail, that doesn't mean they're not interested. Okay. Now, of course, the recruit would just, you would love to be able to say that, hey, coach, do you have an admission spot for me? Do you have a roster spot for me? Can you endorse my admission? That's what I meant to say. Can you endorse my admission? Do you have a scholarship? And all that kind of stuff. Now, the recruit, you should be a lot more powerful. You should be able to, when you're looking at a school that you're interested in, you should be able to project your success. Can you play in the top 6? Should you play in the top 6? Do you have that ability? What's your success rate going to be against conference opponents or ranked opponents? Using those tools between tennis recruiting, universal tennis rating, now the world tennis number, and your USTA ranking or your country's ranking, you can figure that out. And you should figure that out because you don't want to bite off more than you could chew for sure. So it'd be nice to know your rating, your ranking, and all that kind of stuff. That would be, to use all that information to figure out where you think you would be within that program. Then you can take that and communicate that to the coach in a professional way. Also, when communicating with a coach, when it comes down to cell phones, I don't ever recommend leaving a voicemail. See, because if you leave a voicemail to the coach, then that doesn't give you the opportunity to continue to be persistent. Because if you leave a voicemail, hey coach, can you call me? This is so-and-so. But if you don't leave a voicemail, that gives you a right to call back about every day at different times, of course, and hoping the coach picks up the phone. So good salespeople really don't leave voicemails unless they're specific about something that's already being done, not as to gain interest. So pretty much in the recruiting process, don't leave voicemails. Very archaic. Don't do it. It keeps you from, being the opportunity to be persistent there. So now also in the communication, if you're visiting schools, there's nothing wrong with popping in. So if you're visiting the school and try to visit them while they have matches or practices, nothing wrong with popping in and observing practice. These coaches, they're ambassadors for universities. They're not necessarily gatekeepers, but they're ambassadors, so they should always be welcoming and so forth. Now, of course, you don't want to disturb their practice, but to observe practice and maybe chat afterwards, I do this all the time. I was at the Miami-Duke match last year in Miami because it's always fun to go to Miami when it's cold at your home. So anyway, we were in Miami watching the match, and afterwards, I had a conversation with Alosha and also Ramsey, the Duke coach. Just, hi, how's it going? Talking interest. Later, if I had a particular player that was interested in that school, you're having a normal relationship. You can follow up and share all that kind of stuff. So as a recruit, one thing I certainly believe in is progressing to where you have that individual showcase. That's so, for example, if you're visiting Harvard, it'd be nice to have a match across the street at MIT where the coach can come and watch you play. That's an individual showcase that you can organize, or you can work with me to organize it. You have an individual showcase. You play in front of the coach, and you play a couple of sets, try to get your parents away, and then after the match, you ask the coach, hey, what'd you think about my play? Where do you think I fit within your program? What do I need to work on? So it creates an interview going both ways there. The interview is going both ways. So individual showcases, then you get to know each other a lot more. Now, when you go to these other showcases that they're doing down in Florida, and there's many of them, they're really good. Now, the best thing about those showcases, it's warm. They do them at a place that's warm when it's cold at your home. So, or they do them around tournaments. So if you want to go to the showcases, I'm not saying they're bad. I'm saying individual showcases for sure are a lot better, especially when you're interested in the school. So throughout the whole communication thing, it may require you to be persistent. So be persistent, but still be professional too. You don't want to be annoying. You don't want to cross that line. Okay, so be persistent and be professional.